At Easter dinner, my mother raised her glass like she was royalty. Give me back the money I wasted raising you. The table chuckled.
Except me.
I pulled out my phone, transferred her $1 with a single click. Now give me back the 10 years I spent paying your bills. Silence. Then my sister leaned back with a smirk. Don't bring your family again. They're low class. Beneath me. I looked at her. Perfect makeup. Gucci earrings. Living in the condo I bought, driving the car I leased. I took a long sip of wine. Held her gaze. Here's to my sister, who now has a rich boyfriend, and a lifestyle I bankrolled. Then I stood up. By the way, I'm done paying for your luxuries. They thought I was bluffing. I wasn't. That night I went home, logged into every joint account, and one by one, froze the cards, revoked their access, canceled the auto payments, blocked every number. Utilities?
Shut down.
Condo maintenance? Canceled. Mom's online shopping addiction? Declined. Sister's gym membership, facial packages, hair appointments? All linked to my card until 11:42 p.m. that night. By morning, my phone was a war zone. 32 missed calls. Voicemails from shrieking voices that had once dismissed me as a loner with too much pride. They weren't angry because they missed me. They were angry because the funding faucet was gone. And the most delicious part? Not one of them knew what I'd been working on. Behind the scenes, the grant I secured, the nonprofit I launched, the investment that hit 6 figures last week. They thought I was the side character in their golden girl narrative, the one who'd never settle down, who was good with money but bad with people. But I was never the failure. I was their silent foundation. And now that foundation had finally crumbled, on purpose. Let's just say, Easter was the last meal they ever ate on my dime. By Monday, chaos erupted. Mom's cable stopped working mid-morning talk show. She called the provider, only to be told the autopay failed. Sister showed up at her favorite spa. Platinum membership? Declined. She tried to swipe again, harder this time, like pressure would force approval. Didn't work. The receptionist smiled politely. Maybe try another card? She stormed out. I was at the bank when the first joint account flagged. The manager looked at me and said, "You've been supporting 3 additional cardholders for over 9 years. That's rare." I smiled. Not anymore. By evening, my inbox was full of apologies dressed as guilt trips. Mom texted, "I didn't mean what I said. It was just a joke. Can we talk?" My sister wrote, "You're overreacting. Family doesn't pull the plug over words." Words? They weren't just words. They were years of public humiliation, of being mocked at holidays, of them rolling their eyes every time I mentioned my career, calling it just remote work, while I quietly built a portfolio that could buy their entire neighborhood. And now, they had to feel the silence I'd lived in for years. No more birthday checks. No more paid getaways. No more, "Can you just cover this one thing?" I didn't explain. I didn't engage. I simply posted one thing on my story. If they only value you for what you give, stop giving. Watch how quickly love turns to rage. The likes rolled in, even from a few extended cousins, who had seen it all over the years and stayed quiet. I started getting invitations, not from family, but from people who saw my value without a receipt attached. I was free, and they were scrambling. My sister's boyfriend? He moved out 2 days later. When he realized she couldn't afford the condo alone, Mom had to sell her emergency luxury watch to pay the electric bill. They thought cutting me off emotionally would break me. But removing my wallet? That broke them. And I didn't do it out of vengeance. I did it because I finally realized you can't heal in the house that keeps wounding you, especially when you're the one paying its mortgage. By the weekend, my aunt messaged me. Not the favorite aunt. The one who always sat silent at family dinners, eyes down while they mocked me, but never stopped them. "Your mom's been crying every day. She says she's ready to apologize." I didn't answer, because ready didn't mean changed. It meant desperate. I know the difference now. Monday morning. A soft knock on my office door. A delivery. Inside, a handwritten note on cheap stationery, with perfume-smudged corners. We didn't realize how much we leaned on you. We just thought you were strong enough to handle it.
Not.
We're sorry. Just. We thought you could take it. As if my silence meant I was built for disrespect. As if my kindness was some bottomless credit line. They never saw the toll. The nights I skipped things for myself. To pay for their whims. The times I said no to therapy. Because I had to cover someone's emergency. Which always turned out to be a vacation. Or a new phone. Or concert tickets.
But now?
The pipeline had run dry. And their comfort was cracking. That same day, I got a call from my sister's ex. The rich boyfriend. Hey, I don't mean to be weird. But you got out of that mess fast. She told me you were just a lonely guy with money. But after what I've seen, you were the only one holding them up. I let him talk. I didn't need to add anything. The truth was taking care of itself now. Meanwhile, they were trying to crowdsource sympathy. On Facebook, Mom posted a photo of us from 10 years ago. Caption: No family is perfect, but love forgives all. The comments were a war zone. Cousins called her out. Old friends shared screenshots from that Easter dinner. One even commented, "Didn't he pay your bills for a decade while you insulted him?" They started deleting comments fast, but not fast enough. I sat back, sipped my tea, and smiled, because the one thing they never saw coming was that I didn't need revenge. I just needed to stop playing my part in their pretty little lie. And once I did, it all fell apart on its own. I heard nothing for days. Not a text. Not a passive-aggressive post. Not even a new guilt trap disguised as an apology. Silence. And it was glorious. Then, Thursday morning, my doorbell rang. There she was. My mother, standing on the porch in a stiff coat, clutching a sad little bag of pastries. Like they could make 10 years of financial abuse taste sweet. I thought maybe we could talk? I didn't move. Didn't invite her in. Just leaned against the doorframe. About what? I asked. She blinked, clearly not used to resistance.
About this.
I know things were said, but we're family. Family. That word again. Thrown around like a shield when they're cornered. A leash they tighten whenever you try to walk away. You said I was a waste, I reminded her. At Easter dinner. In front of everyone. Then laughed while your daughter called my daughter low class. She looked down. It was a joke. That word. That pathetic, gaslighting word. No, I said calmly. It was a mirror. And for the first time, I let you see yourselves in it. She started crying then. But I didn't flinch. I wasn't heartless. I was just done. She handed me a folded note. Inside, a check for $1,000. It's what you sent me that night, she said. I want to give it back. I don't want your money. I want my son. I smiled. For once, not bitter. Not wounded. Just clear. You never wanted me, Mom. You wanted the version of me that paid your way, stayed quiet when you mocked me, and funded the life you used to pretend was your own. That version's gone. She looked up. Real tears now. But I handed the check back. Give it to a charity. Maybe a shelter. Someone who'll appreciate it. Then I shut the door. Not in anger, but with peace. Because walking away wasn't about punishing her anymore. It was about protecting me. And as I stood there, in my quiet, peaceful home, self-paid, self-built, self-kept, I realized something. Sometimes the loudest revenge is the silence that follows your absence. Sunday afternoon. I was working in the backyard. Nothing fancy, just peace and soil and silence. When I saw them, 3 cars pulling up. My mother, my sister, 2 aunts. One even brought a casserole. Like forgiveness could be baked. They didn't text, didn't call, just showed up like the past hadn't exploded 4 parts ago. I didn't open the gate, didn't move from the steps. They stood outside like lost tourists, in a town they used to own. My sister called out first. We just want to talk. We didn't mean for things to go so far. Far? I nearly laughed. They pushed me off emotional cliffs for years. Called it love. Called it toughness. But when I finally stopped falling, they panicked. My mother held the casserole like it was a peace treaty. It's your favorite. Mushroom chicken. I hadn't eaten meat in 3 years. They never noticed. We're trying, she added. Can't you see that?
Yes.
I could. I could see the cracks in their confidence. The fear in their eyes now that their ATM had grown a spine. Now that the daughter, who always had too many opinions, had cut the cord they thought was unbreakable. I walked closer, not to embrace them, but so they could hear me clearly. Let me ask you something, I said. If I never paid your bills, if I never bailed you out, would you even be here today? They didn't answer. I kept going. You didn't love me. You loved what I did for you. And now that you can't access it, you're here, calling it family. My sister teared up. We can do better. I shook my head. You had a decade to do better. I asked for respect, not repayment. But all you gave me was laughter, debt, and silence. I'm not coming back. I opened the gate just long enough to hand them the casserole. You can keep this. Consider it the last thing I'll ever accept from you. Then I turned, walked back into my home, into peace, into a future that didn't need their permission. They stood there for another minute, clutching food they'd never let feed me before. Then they left, and I didn't look back, because the girl who once begged for love was finally loving herself louder. The invitation arrived in a crisp, white envelope. From my cousin Amanda, the only one who never mocked me. She was getting married. You're not just invited, she wrote. I want you to speak. I almost said no. Not because I didn't love her, but because I knew who else would be there.
Mom. Sister.
Every backstabber in pearls and fake smiles. But Amanda had always been kind. So I went. I wore a navy suit. Sharp. Quietly expensive. The kind you only buy when you no longer need to prove anything. The moment I walked in, heads turned. Conversations paused. I could feel them whispering. And I loved it. My sister looked me up and down. Eyes flicked to my shoes. My watch. My posture. Like she couldn't quite recognize me anymore. My mother? She gave a small, stiff smile. I gave none back. Then came the speech. I stood at the mic. Heart steady, voice clear. Amanda once told me, family isn't blood. It's who shows up without conditions. She showed up for me when others didn't. And that's why I'm here. The silence was deafening. No claps yet. Just a few gasps from relatives, who finally got the message. I kept going. To the ones who only come around when it's easy. You're too late. And to the ones who watched me break. And only asked for more. I built my life back without you. Love isn't a transaction. And respect isn't optional. Then I raised my glass. To chosen family, the ones who never demanded, never shamed, and never made me apologize for not being who they expected. And they clapped.
Loud. Long.
Even the caterers stopped to listen. Afterward, a few relatives came to say sorry. I nodded, forgave, but never forgot. Because closure doesn't mean return. It means release. As I left, Amanda hugged me tight. You were perfect, she whispered. They needed to hear that. I smiled. So did I. That night, for the first time in years, I slept like a woman who owed no one anything. Not her pain, not her loyalty, not even an explanation. 3 days later, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside was a cashier's check for $14,000 and a note in my mother's handwriting. For everything you've paid over the years. Hope this is a start. Let's rebuild. I stared at it, not because the money impressed me, but because it was the first time she ever acknowledged the debt. But the truth? It wasn't about dollars. Never was. You can't repay someone for 10 years of belittling their success. You can't put a price tag on the silence after your daughter cries. Because grandma called us trash. And you definitely can't buy back. Dignity, you never respected to begin with. I didn't cash the check. I framed it, hung in my office, right above my law degree, that they once said was probably fake, because I worked from home. 2 days later, my sister texted me, "Saw your little speech at Amanda's wedding. You're still so dramatic." I didn't respond, so she followed with, "Mom's trying. You could meet her halfway." Halfway? I met them at 100 for a decade, paid every bill, covered every tantrum, swallowed every insult. This was the first time I stayed at 0, and suddenly they were exhausted. The truth is, when you stop financing other people's delusions, you become the villain in their story. Let them write it. Let them sell it. I'm too busy funding my piece. That week, I donated the exact $14,000 to a single mom finishing law school, someone whose family gave up on her too. She cried on the phone. I didn't tell her why I chose her. Just said, no one who keeps going alone should feel alone. My mother never knew, but that's what made it powerful. I didn't need her to clap. Didn't need her guilt. I already had what they'd never give me. Self-worth that isn't up for negotiation. The final attempt came on my birthday. A large bouquet. Orchids, my favorite. A card attached in tight, slanted cursive. "We miss you. Maybe it's not too late to start over. Love, Mom." No demands. No sarcasm. Just a whisper of what could have been. If they'd chosen love instead of leverage. All those years ago. But I didn't cry. Not anymore. I stood in my kitchen, watching those flowers sit silently on my table. Beautiful. And too late. That night, I went out with real friends. The kind who never made me feel like I had to buy their love in installments. One of them raised a glass and said, "You walked away with nothing but your backbone. And look what you built with it." I smiled, because they saw me. Not for what I gave. Not for what I fixed. But for who I'd become. When I stopped needing their permission, I never replied to my mom's card. Never called. Never walked through that door again. Not out of hate, but because healing sometimes looks like knowing when not to return to the fire, just because the flames look smaller. I still keep the card, though, tucked inside my journal. Not as a keepsake, but as a reminder. This is what people send when they finally realize you were the glue the whole time. But glue isn't meant to be invisible. And I'll never be invisible again. They had their chance. I gave them a decade, 1,000,000 second chances, and 10,000 silent forgives. Now, I give that same energy. To me. To the girl who made her own name. To the woman who stopped flinching. To the survivor who no longer funds her abusers. In the name of keeping the peace. I didn't get revenge. I got clarity. I got strength. I got out. And in the end, that was all I ever needed.